So the title of this particular course is the CNT Routing Form course. It's presented by the Atlanta TMD Institute, which I founded in 2018. And I had goals and purposes and things I wanted to do, how to help mankind, how to help other dentists and physicians and people who treat people who have TMD. So the purpose of the Atlanta TMD Institute, we have a threefold purpose. One, to educate dental and medical professionals in TMD, and we give courses. We have online courses. One is free. We want also to develop knowledge of TMD disorders. In other words, there are a lot of strange things like shaking hands or tardive dyskinesia where people have crazy motions, and we want to find out what is the relationship. Why do some of these things clear up when we start TMD, and can we show why scientifically so it will be accepted by the medical and dental community? So research is the last thing. We have to pay bills first, and we pay bills through successfully treating patients who are suffering in TMD. So the reality is money makes the world go around, the world go around, the world go around. Money makes the world go around. So we have to make money, and much of that money we want to contribute to our other two purposes. So we see patients from dentists and physicians and physical therapists, neurologists, and all kind of people. We treat them, we charge them, we make money, we pay the staff, we pay expenses, we pay the rent, we pay all the things we have to pay for so we can have a good life. And then our second would be to educate dental and medical professionals with online courses, visits to our dentist, to our TMD office, and lectures, at various places throughout the world. So, and finally, of course, to do research. In order to do research, I have to have a big staff. I have to have one or two people who are dedicated solely to helping me with research. Research begins with reading all the papers on a subject, then trying to do experimentation, not human cutting or anything, but do studies and look to see. After reading everything, we have a hypothesis. The hypothesis may be that people walk better after their TMD is treated. It may be that certain types of Parkinson's may respond to TMD treatment. So just these crazy statements, there's evidence for both of those, but there's very little in studies and papers. It would be wonderful to have studies that show how TMD affects like sleep. How well do people get better when we do TMD treatment without even doing obstructive sleep apnea appliances? So that's what we're all about, and I think it's really important for you to understand you're part of an organization that wants to change the world, and we would love to. And the reality is, I'm 70 now, and 2014, soon to be 15, and I want this institute to continue on. And really, I do. This is my passion, and so I'd like to be remembered this way. Isn't that crazy? So please study, learn this stuff, look at it over and over and over again. And I thank you so much for being part of our team or a TMD team. I'm just appreciative, and give me a call or email me whenever you need to. Email the Institute. We will help. This is what we do. Now, of course, you don't want to be contacting us every day to supervise things, but we're here to help whenever we can in terms of our books, our videos, and other things that we can help you with. So let's get started on the CNT Routing Form course. The CNT Routing Form course reviews all of the procedures related to the CNT routing form. And so many employees really don't know what they're doing. They think they understand the routing form, but they don't. It seems so simple. It's 2 pages, but there's just lots and lots of procedures that are associated with, in fact, doing the correct job related to the routing form. The probably most important legal section is the back page, and it's called the TMD Start Record. And it goes over all the things that must be done. And honestly, it's probably the most important part of our TMD treatment from the point of view of legal issues. We have a mother right now that's going ape because her daughter didn't show up for 5 out of 6 appointments, and she wants a refund because it's not working, and it's not working because she's not showing up. But how can we say that it's the patient's responsibility to show up? Well, if we have an informed consent in writing with a signature of the patient, it's clear in court she agreed to show up. Now we don't. We don't have an informed consent, so the patient can argue, well, Dr. Podolsky knew that she wasn't showing up for all these appointments. Dr. Podolsky didn't do the right thing and get her in. That's his responsibility. Well, with a signed informed consent, it's the patient's, not Dr. P. But we don't have it. So we got to argue, hopefully never in court, that it was her responsibility. She screwed the situation up, and she's the one really that is creating the problem. So let's look at the TMD Start Record. This section of the CNT writing form is very often misunderstood. Mistakes are made more on this section than any other of the sections in the form. Some of these mistakes are serious as heck, put us in prison, major lawsuits, stuff that should not be forgotten, but are forgotten because of sloppiness in the procedures that our staff do. Basically forgetting things, right? Things that are super duper essential. And so this section on the back of the routing form is related to ensuring that all the necessary things needed for treatment are completed. This is a treatment section, things that are needed for treatment. And some of the things that we treat are definite things where we take impression of this, but also making sure that a full TMD consent form is part of correct treatment. So you just take a brief moment. It's the TMD Start Record. In other words, this patient came for their consultation, paid their money, got started. Hallelujah. Isn't that what we want? Right. This is, I love treating patients. I love being a healer. I love taking care of my people, both my staff, you, and my patients. We have a sacred duty. It's almost like a priest. I really do. So in here, we have a procedure that was completed. So there are several here, like TMD treatment start date, that you just put the date where it says date completed. Easy to do. Excuse me, easy, easy. Then the next is the full TMD consent form, signed and scanned. Listen, I want to tell you something. This is the most important part of this part. Communication is a problem. People say, well, he's a nice patient or she's a nice patient. And what happens is the patient seems nice, but then when there's problems, they get angry, vicious, and it's just ugly. And I'm trying to tell you, never prejudge, never be prejudging patients, because you don't know who's going to sue you, who's not going to sue you, who's going to make you miserable, and who's going to make you happy. You don't know that. If you look at marriages, two people decide to get married, and they love each other from death till we part, and then literally 3 years later, they're the exes, right? And they hate each other. So this full TMD consent form must be signed before any treatment is rendered. And that's your responsibility. The receptionist's responsibility, absolutely. And then we've got competent, excellent TMD assistants who refuse to take a mandibular alginate. I refuse. There is no signed consent form. The assistant is supposed to do this before starting. That's the assistant's responsibility. But I have had one small claims court action. That's where a patient can't get an attorney because there's no money in it. But the patient accused me of doing things that, guess what, I wasn't responsible for. And I did not have a signed consent form. A patient said, I came in, you're supposed to do a filling on me. She really did say that. Well, I don't do that. And in the consent form, it clearly states that Dr. P does not do fillings. But yet she filed a small claims court action against me saying I was incompetent. I broke a tooth. I was supposed to fill it and replace it. And in the consent form, it says I don't do general dentistry. And not only that, we had pictures showing the tooth was damaged. But I went through that whole small claims court process, and I didn't have a consent form. If I had a consent form, we could have dismissed the whole thing immediately, because that consent form clearly says he doesn't do fillings and crowns. This consent form clearly says that your teeth can break and be harmed sometimes when you're having TMD treatment. All that was in the consent form, but the incompetent assistant, incompetent receptionist rushed everything through, didn't consider it was important, and I suffered for that. Because it was probably about 4 months of having to go through, the small claims court procedures. The next one, lower alginate and master model. So alginate is the impression we take, then we go to the lab, and we pour it up, and we make a model, which is a statue. That's first, and that is considered a start. When we take the lower impression, it's a start. Upper impression is needed as opposing we don't know how the upper teeth fit into our appliances. We have to take a upper alginate and pour it up and make a master model. Those two are necessary. We try very hard to get both of them on starts, but very, very unfortunately, we can't always do it. So the first appointment would be taking a lower impression, then they come back, we deliver the soft guard, and then we take the upper alginate at that appointment. It's a little slower. We are trying to get to the point where we can do full records the first day when they start. That's why we moved all of the appointment CNTs, almost all of them, to Monday mornings, right? So we only have CNTs from 1 o'clock to 10 o'clock or 10 to 1. That's it, nothing else, because there's room there for the senior TMD assistant to get all of the records. Then we have a TMJ, temporal mandibular joint, CAT scan. We do right and the left, and we evaluate that. We also take a side plate x-ray, which looks at the neck and the jaw, and that's very important. Next is diagnostic photographs. That's another one we tend to forget all the time. We get a competent senior dental assistant comes in, and then she leaves, and then the next person, they don't believe it's important, right? And they don't take them. And I go ape. I just go ape, and it's just extremely difficult. But it happens a lot. And then we have to do a full completed examination form, because if we ever get subpoenaed for court, they want all the evidence that this patient had a TMD problem. And I'm going to tell you right now, we commonly get subpoenas for records where our patient is suing someone else because they damaged them. A lot of very nasty patients never tell us about this. But then you go back and we see, oh my God, we never have a consent form. Oh my God, we never did completed our evaluation. Oh my God. And then we're giving this to a lawyer who's like a shark, can turn on us when he sees we're weak. I'm just telling you, this stuff is really important. And then when everything is done, you've got the informed consent signed, you've got the upper and lower alginates and models, you've got the CAT scan, the cephalometric radiograph, you've got diagnostic photographs, and your complete evaluation form done, and everything's completed. Then you say all necessary procedures completed, you put the date completed, and you put your initials in there. Now you can throw the entire consent form away, rip it up. Now, I'm telling you, you only throw it away if the patient started treatment. If the patient did not start treatment, you do not throw that form away. We never got to this level. In other words, the patient didn't start, so they're home waiting for your call, but they've never gone in our office to do all these things because they never paid and started. Got it? So that's pretty much completing this. The procedures on the left, it says procedure completed, date completed. You put a date, which is a full number, date, not January. You put 1 or 01. And then staff member initials, whoever did this signs it, right? So if you're the receptionist and the senior TMD assistant took the upper and lower alginates, the senior TMD assistant would come over and you would make sure, guarantee that she would sign this in that on that level, on that line. All right, so this form, this area is the TMD start record. We're recording something. When you have a birth, there it goes to, you have a birth certificate, and that's a record, right? And it goes into files with the county or city you're in. Let's go over what a temporomandibular start is and what's necessary to be able to start legally. In other words, these things have to be done. Don't play with me. You can get, I'm sorry, I don't like saying this. I very rarely fire people, but if you're incompetent and putting us at risk, legal risk, and harming the patients because you're lazy and you don't care, we're in trouble. So we're doing this wonderful video so that you will not make mistakes and you will take care of patients super duper. Our goal at the Atlanta TMD Institute is to be world class. World class meaning we are the best. And in order to be the best, sometimes just keeping documents and records is part of that being fantastic and best. And no problems occur because you are super at what you do. Very important. And when there's a test associated with this video, and we're going to see if you know what's going on and why, WHY, why do you have to do certain things. All right. A temporomandibular disorder start, or TMD, which is abbreviated TMD start in our office, requires that 3 mandatory. Now, mandatory means you've got to do it. It's mandatory. You must do it. You're in trouble, right? A temporomandibular disorder TMD start, abbreviated TMD start, requires 3 mandatory things to do. You must do these 3 things, so you better know them when I ask you on the test. 2 things. Payment, taking full payment, and the informed consent signed must be completed before the last one of the 3. In other words, the last one is the mandibular alginate impression. The first 2 are payment. First is payment. Second is informed consent. Third is the mandibular alginate impression. 3 things. That's going to be on the test. I'll just let you know. A temporomandibular disorder start is when a TMD patient or the patient's guardian or anyone else pays in full for the cost of the patient's TMD treatment at the Atlanta TMD Institute. Our policy is full payment before. Do not make an appointment if payment hasn't been received. I'm ordering you that. There's no questioning that. We have had several instances where people have not paid, they get an appointment, and they come in and they don't want to pay. And I'm going to go after you, not the patient, because you're in charge. If you're a Kroger and someone drives right by you not paying anything for the whole cart of food, and you're the cashier, and you let that happen, you're a criminal too, kid. I'm sorry. So please don't say it's not your fault. A temporomandibular disorder start is when a TMD patient or the patient's guardian or anyone else pays in full for the cost of this patient's TMD treatment at the Atlanta TMD Institute before the treatment starts or before the first appointment is made. That's number 1. What's number 2? They must have the informed consent. So 1 has to be paid in full before the appointment is made. The second is there must be a signed and witnessed. You're a witness, right? You watch someone kill someone. You didn't kill them, but you were there watching it. You're the witness. So whenever the patient signs something, you sign it also. I recently saw a very competent, smart young lady working for us who did not sign the witness, the witness signature. Oh my God. I was like, oh my God, she's smart, right? But no, she didn't do it. It's crazy. You need a witness because the patient could later say, I never signed that. That's not my signature. But then you're on there saying, I, with my eyeballs, watched her sign it. I, with my eyeballs, watched her sign it. Therefore, when she says she didn't sign it in court, we bring you in and you raise your right hand, you swear, and you say, yes, she did sign this consent form. All right. So one, pay in full before the first appointment, the TMD start appointment, right? Pay in full, not pay in full, sign and witness the TMD informed consent. No one can start without that consent form. The receptionist says, no, don't jump in there, assistant. Don't get anything set up. No, don't take anything. Because as soon as you start and they didn't sign the consent, we're in trouble. Don't do that. And likewise, the TMD assistant, smart as hell, says to the receptionist, did we get a signed consent form? And the TMD assistant can also look at the stored documents to make sure it was done, because the TMD assistant should refuse to let anybody start, will not take an impression without the full TMD informed consent signed and witnessed. Won't do it. Next thing is when the mandibular lower alginate impression is taken, that's considered a start. In other words, we've started the treatment, it's begun prior to taking that impression. So if they pay in full, it's not a start. If they have not signed the consent form, it's not a start. And if we haven't taken at least the lower impression, it's not a start. So don't count it as a start. That's important because we keep records of all the starts we have every single week. Okay, remember that the first thing that must be done before a start is collect payment in full. Remember, I said in full. Don't play with me. Don't ever play with me. Don't say, oh yeah, she paid $2,000, so we got started. We had a patient, I'm not gonna tell the last name, Annie. She, I think she paid $2,000 because we loved her. I loved her. I wanted her to be taken care of. I wanted her to be my patient. Please marry me. And then as soon as she started feeling better, it was a total fee was like 56. She put 2,000 down, and we let her pay out so much per month for the rest of the 3,600 or so. Well, she basically looked at my reception and said, I feel better. I'm not paying anymore. And she said that directly to her. She said, screw you. I don't care. You may love me, but I don't love you. See me try to get me. Basically, it was kind of like, try and get me. I'm not paying you. She was right up front. It was arrogance. And this woman is suing someone for like 100,000. She is. She's suing someone else to make money, and then she's not paying me. This is not a good person. So when you look at someone, do not judge a book by their cover. Don't do that. That's prejudice. We hate prejudice. We hate when people prejudge other people. That's wrong. So don't say she's going to pay because she's white. She's not going to pay because she's green. That's bullshit. Oh, excuse me. I swear. I'm just trying to tell you, you can't play around with being prejudging people, prejudice. Don't. Everybody must pay in full before we start. You cannot take a lower impression until we're paid in full. You can't. We can't start unless paid in full. All right, so let's define what a TMD start is. A temporal mandibular disorder start is when a TMD patient or the patient's guardian or anyone else pays in full. See the full? For the cost of this patient's TMD treatment at the Atlanta TMD Institute. And they can pay with credit card. We like that. We really do. Cherry loans. Cherry is a zero interest payment plan. It is not financing. Financing is when the patient pays a lot of money for the cost of getting a loan. We pay it. You pay it. Me, I pay it. We all pay it, right? The patient does not pay the financing fee. We do. Therefore, it is not financing for the patient, more for us. So you never use the swear word financing. That's a swear word. Yeah, because patients hear that and they say, I'm not going to get into any kind of nasty agreement where I'm screwed. I'm not going to do it. Well, you're going to relax them, console them and say, oh, you don't have to worry. We pay your interest. We don't say financing fee. We say we pay your interest. Got it? And they can pay credit card. I like that. I really do. Cherry loan. Cherry approves about 80% of patients so they can do a 1 year payment plan. We only do 1 year payment plans. So you gotta, please don't be a trader. Don't go behind me and start putting for a year and a half or 2 years, because when it goes through a year and a half, I have to pay like 15 or 20%. I do. I'm not going to do that. I don't mind helping people, but a year I'll do, because that's I have to pay 10%. But if you go to 18 months, I'm going 15 to 20%. Now I'm making a lot less money, take care of that patient, and I got to pay you, right? Next is certified check. Really like it because there's no 10%. Cherry's 10%. So on $1,000, Cherry keeps 100, only gives me a check for 900, right? I'm giving them 100 to get this loan for this patient. So if I'm doing 5,000, let's say 5,000, get this, I'm giving them 500 bucks. They short my payment. I don't get the 5,000. They take 500 out, 10%. Got it? Very important. So if a person comes in with a certified check from a bank, that means the check is good, always good because it's certified, and I don't pay that 500 bucks. I like that, right? We want that. But a lot of very bad patients don't listen to us. They come in and they give us a personal check. We said not to do that, but they still do it. We'll accept the check, but you know, it is a felony to write a check, I think over $1,000, and bounce it in the state of Georgia. It's a felony, but people do it. So we start, she gets the early treatment. We find out 10 days later, the check is bad. We've already given treatment. Now we have to sue the patient. We have to file criminal charges. We have to file criminal charges against our patient who we're sworn to take care of well. What is that? So I do not get involved in that. You have to be very clear. Bring a certified check. Very important, to the start visit. Or even better, drop the check off before the patient comes in for their start, right? And a personal check is accepted, but we're not going to complete all of the stuff until that personal check clears, because it might not. There are a lot of criminals. Please don't tell me everything's fine. Don't worry, he looks good. That's prejudice. Oh yeah, she looks good. She's going to pay. No, it doesn't work that way. You know, it does not work that way. So the immediate 4 types of payment, we try not to take cash. If you do get cash like that, we've got to run it over to the bank right after this appointment, which sucks. But it got to go into the bank if it's cash, because someone can come and take it. We still would have to, in a robbery, we would still have to provide all the treatment to the patient, even though we didn't get the money and someone stole it. So personal check is discouraged. Again, what's the thing here? Payment in full must be received before the start is done, right? We like to start the same day as the CNT. We really do. Let me tell you, I'm going to say this out loud. Very rarely, almost never, do people who are approved for treatment or want the treatment return later after they leave the CNT appointment. I'm going to say it again. People who leave the CNT appointment without starting almost never come back. And you're going to learn that. And you can't be arrogant. You can't be like bad to me, because we have 42 years of experience. We know they're not coming back because the world hits them and they start worrying. Oh, if I give them this money, this is going to happen to me. Oh, my husband says I shouldn't, it's not good. I'm paying too much and the family's stressed. Oh. All these other things happen to them in the real world and they don't come back. Our policy is to get people to start that day, almost always really what we want. This is the first page of the informed consent. Informed means I am letting you know. I'm informing you of the birth of your granddaughter. Inform means to let you know. Consent means to say, okay, I agree. I'll let you do it. Consent. When a patient gives their consent, they say, go ahead and treat me. And I understand all the problems that might happen. I understand the costs. I understand the rules related to being treated, all the things that relate to the treatment and our relationship between the patient and the doctor.
very important stuff. We cannot start a TMD case without an informed consent. Insanely, crazily, you're not going to believe this. So many incompetent, and I've got to use that word. I really hate to, but totally incompetent assistants and receptionists have let patients get their treatment without an informed consent. The informed consent basically tells them, this is what we're giving you, 6 months. No consent, they could say, you told me 2 years. I'm getting all my treatment for free. I prepaid. No, it's only 6 months. Yeah, but you didn't tell me that. Yes, I did in the informed consent. But I never signed a informed consent. You never gave me one. So therefore, you're at fault. You are wrong, Dr. Podolsky. You're a bad doctor. So we got to have this informed consent. Little things like, not showing up for appointments, or, oh my God, I lost my appliance. Well, that's not covered. If you get a car and you don't have insurance, you buy it from a Buick dealer, and then you wreck it, you can't go back to the Buick dealer and say, hey, my car wrecked, you got to give me another one. And the guy's going to laugh at you. It's like, excuse me? We don't give a, if you wreck the car, that's your responsibility. That's your problem. And, we're not giving you a new one. You didn't have insurance. Sorry, you're out. You got nothing. You lost it all. So there's a whole bunch of things within the, within the informed consent, especially saying, I will show up for my appointments, We have a case right now where the mother signed a young daughter up. She's going to Auburn University, and she doesn't show up for appointments. As a matter of fact, the past 5 out of 6 appointments, she didn't show up. I'm not kidding you. So mother's going ape and saying, I want all my money back. This treatment didn't work. Well, it didn't work because the patient didn't comply with coming to appointments. Now, she could say, well, I didn't know. Well, of course, we have a ledger showing it, thank God, but this is a big issue. It's like, okay, and what are our responsibilities to ensure that she comes to is it our responsibility to make sure she comes? Her responsibility or a mother's responsibility? Who's at fault, right, for her not showing up for all these appointments? Ultimately, her, because she is an adult. She's over 18. She's an adult in Georgia, but the mother paid, so the mother's intimately involved, and she's crazy. There's all these problems going on. No consent, total incompetence. And so I may have to argue in front of a judge the requirements without any written consent, and the judge is going to say, okay, Mrs. So-and-so, I can't say the name, she's going to argue differently. And the judge has to make a decision. The judge has to judge who's truthful, who's not truthful. If there was a informed consent, it wouldn't be judging truthful or not truthful. It would be the informed consent agreement in writing between the doctor and the patient that would rule that decision. Got it? So you will be spending some time learning this because it is extremely important. The thing is, the receptionist should know everything, and whoever is witnessing that signature should know a bunch about that consent form.
The informed consent is a get out of jail card, like with Monopoly. Patients sometimes get vicious. It's not common, but they do. And patients sometimes sue. We've never had a lawsuit, but we did have a small claims court case, which is where you don't need a lawyer. I had to get a lawyer. The patient who complained did not bring a lawyer. Patient claimed that we were supposed to do a crown and some fillings for her. I am not a regular dentist. I am a TMD dentist. And in the consent form, it clearly outlines Dr. P is not a general dentist. He doesn't do your general dentistry treatment. Absolutely in there. But unfortunately, some incompetent receptionist who was responsible to make sure it was signed never got it signed. So, of course, now the judge doesn't know what the agreement is between me and the patient because it's not clearly stated. the informed consent clearly states that. That's why we have to get it, for so many reasons, signed and reviewed. So what is informed consent, right? It is when permission is granted by the patient to the doctor to provide TMD treatment in the knowledge of possible consequences. So the patients basically say, yeah, it's not battery. Battery is when you touch someone unwantedly and without permission, and you can't just touch someone without permission. So the patient's saying, okay, yeah, here, go ahead and treat me. Touch me, make appliances for me, work with me, inform me, teach me. But it also says with possible consequences. TMD doesn't work all the time. Most of the time when it doesn't work, patients don't wear their appliances, and that's true. And they don't do any of their 6-week program. They don't do what they just do what they want, but then they blame us. People think, oh, these guys are so nice. These patients are so nice. We love them, and I do. But I also know that maybe 2 out of 10 have some issues mentally, and they can act really nasty. And when you enter in the relationship, it's like we're getting married from death to us part. Both of us love each other, and then in reality, like 50% of people get divorced after what I think it's 5 years or 7 years, and now they're the ex that they hate. So don't think that this patient's going to love us forever. Don't. So again, when permission is granted by the patient to the doctor to provide TMD treatment in the knowledge of the possible consequences. Yes, go ahead and do it. I know I might get bad. Problems might happen, but I agree to take those risks. I agree with the full knowledge of possible risks and benefit. What's going to help? What's not going to help? What are the chances of each one of those things happening? The informed consent also informs the TMD patient of what procedures will be received and what procedures will not be received. Every so often, once a year or so, I get someone that says the physical therapy was included in what I paid you for the physical therapy, and you're going to provide it. And I said, I'm not a physical therapist. I didn't promise that. It's in the consent form that I don't promise that. And so that got kind of crazy. It gets crazy. We even had one person we did a soft guard only for, and then like a year and a half later, she wanted a full refund. She said, well, my TMD is getting worse, and I want a full refund. And that was crazy. It can also outline acceptable patient and doctor behavior. You don't come to your appointments, you're bad, you're out. Sorry, no refund for you. Then the Atlanta TMD Institute has a TMD informed consent course, which all you guys have to take. All staff, not just the front office, all staff are required to take so as to become fully knowledgeable of the agreement, what I agree to do, what I don't agree to do between the doctor and patient. Everything starts with the start. Got it? The TMD start date is the date that we began treatment for this patient. Legally, the patient has 6 months prepaid visits, meaning all these visits from this date, TMD start date, and on to 6 months is legally covered. After this date plus 6 months, they must pay for all future appointments. We are kind and loving people. So technically, legally, TMD start date is the beginning of the 6 months, but typically we give the patients breaks, right? Because the real appliance, you should know, is the MORA, not the start date or the soft guard delivery. It's the delivery of the hard guard. So I like 6 months with a hard guard, and that is a different calculation. That has nothing to do with the TMD start date. But right now we're telling what is the date that the TMD treatment started, okay? What is it? So let's talk about this so it's very specific. The TMD start date is the date that this TMD patient had his or her lower mandibular impression taken. So this is we like to get full records whenever we can. We definitely want to get upper and lower impressions. Really, we do. We want to, but we can't always do it. There may be 3 CNTs, one back to back, and we don't have any time. So we absolutely have to try to get everything coordinated. But we must get the lower impression. Technically, we're making an appliance. Once we take an impression, That's the start of an appliance. And if you look at our financial policy, we charge out when we start an appliance, and we are starting the soft guard. So we're going to take the lower impression. The TMD start date is the date that this TMD patient has had his or her lower mandibular impression done. If both the mandibular and maxillary impressions are taken on the same TMD start date, it's the same date as if only the lower mandibular impression was started. Whether we take an upper, we don't take upper only. We only do lower appliances. So the lower appliance is the one that technically starts everything. If we take the lower and the upper, wonderful, no problem, but it's still the same start date. Got it? Very important. Now, the TMD start date is not the date of payment. They may pay, they may get cherry approving, and then we call and they do it, and the money comes into our account. They've paid. That is not a lower impression, is it? We did not take the lower impression. We did not start the construction of the soft guard. We didn't do any actual treatment. We did not start the treatment. We just took money. Got it? Very important. So payment in full, which is required in all cases, is not the TMD start date, right? So on the TMD routing form, print, and it's in the back of the form, print in the date of the start date, the TMD start date, and clearly write in your initials. Absolutely. And the initials need to be seen. I need to know who did this, because guess what? You're in charge of this. Please don't screw around. Don't play with me. We have to be a really good team, honest Abe, good people working together to provide the very best treatment to our patients. This is part of that, and you're a part of that. So be proud, and once you put your date and name in there, guess what? You are in charge. You're going to be reviewing this form continually. You're going to be on the TMD assistant's butt to get all things done. The requirement is we must finish all of this, guess what? Within 2 to 3 weeks. Absolutely. Anything a month or more, we're going to go looking for heads. Really, it's worse than Henry VIII, who could have, 6 wives, cut their heads off, or then I'll get the heads cut off. But we're going to look for people. You're going to be the first on the target list because you were the main person and responsible. You said, all right, today is the 1st of June, okay? Then certainly by the 1st of July, you better make sure that you made sure this whole form is done. If you do not, you're going to be considered a bad employee. And then the TMD assistant's going to say, oh, that receptionist never talked to me about any of this. I didn't know. Well, she's responsible also, but you're the person who oversees the writing forms that are stored in the 3-ring binders every month. You watch over this closely. Got it? So just remember, the start date is the date we take the lower impression or anything else. And you have to get it done within 30 days. You must get it done. All the stuff on this section, all the records, everything done by 30 days. We prefer 2 or 3 weeks, but if it goes to 30 days and I come over and I see, oh my God, this has been past 30 days, we didn't get the photos. Oh, it's been past 30 days, we didn't get the CAT scan. Oh my God. Oh my God, we forgot the exam. That's malpractice. What happened here? We're going to go after you. All right. I'm just going to tell you that. Now, I don't think I'm going to do that because you're listening to this and you're going to be a very responsible, caring person. You're the best in the world. And if you're the best in the world, you're going to do this. You're going to listen to it. It's not that you're scared. You say, I am going to make sure that this patient gets excellent treatment. All the records are taken. I'm going to make sure it all happens because I am outstanding. And we will have a great TMD practice if everyone does that. So please get on it. So it's interesting. In order to get things done, you really got to make someone responsible, someone in charge, so we can ask that person, was it done? If lots of people are all involved, nothing gets done because nobody feels responsible. They're going to point fingers to each other. I can't do that. Can't work with that. The person who stores the CNT routing forms is the receptionist, no question. Receptionist fills out the information, welcomes the patient, takes money, takes collection for payment in full. The receptionist then stores them in 3-ring binders during the month that the CNT occurred.
not when they called, but the date of the appointment, right? And then there's one for each month. And the routing form itself is used for follow-up also for those that did not actually make an appointment, or those who made an appointment didn't pay, those who did not actually come in and visit. Got it? So let's read this. TMD records, which is this section of the CNT routing form, must be completed before 1 month after the TMD start date, or heads will roll. That is totally incompetent. We are telling everybody we're the best in the world, and then we screw up patients. We don't care. Well, the best in the world gets things done. The best in the world stay organized. They do the job because they love the patients. Well, I'm not doing it because I just don't feel like doing it today. Well, get out of here. Find another job. We're the best in the world. You need to be the best in the world. Being the best in the world is making sure that all records are taken in a timely manner, if early, if not late, definitely not late. The receptionist who filled out this form, the CNT routing form, at the patient's initial call, is totally responsible for successfully completing all records, get this, before 1 month after the TMD start date. So you have who keeps the form? You do. The receptionist does. So who has to manage the form? The receptionist does. So when the form is completed for people who started, like Missy Jones paid the money for the treatment. Missy signed the informed consent, and Missy started by taking the impressions. When everything's done, and actually when you sign off on this form in the records, all you have to do is make sure that you've sent the primary care provider and ENT all their books. We may update this to put additional healthcare professionals, but the form, the primary chunk, most important part of the form legally in court is the records area. And that is being supervised by you or the receptionist. Well, the TMD assistant also chairs this responsibility of getting this all done. So the receptionist and the TMD assistant or senior TMD assistant, they work together, team, working with each other, no finger pointing, excellent people, care about each other, care about the patient, and both work as a close team to accomplish everything we're trying to do. Very important. I don't know what to say. This has to be that way. For us to be the best in the world, we have to work together well. We have to like each other, and we have to make sure that things get done, because that's what successful people do. They get things done quickly, and that's absolutely true. There we go, over and over. So the TMD assistant shares this responsibility as the receptionist teammate. So we would love to have complete records at the first TMD start appointment, but we can't always do it. We want it. We want to be perfect, getting all of the records. In other words, getting upper and lower impressions, taking the CAT scan and the SEF, signing the consent form, all of that we want done. Complete exam, we can't do it. Almost always can't do the full exam because that takes 1-on-1, and there are other CNTs, but we want to get all the other records. What what has to be done to legally be considered a start? And that is to take a lower impression. Now look at that lower impression. It looks like a horseshoe. Got it? Uppers do not look like horseshoes. The center of the impression is there. Here, it's a horseshoe. You see all the lower teeth. You look on the left, there's 2 molars, the larger ones on the bottom left, 2 molars, 2 bicuspids, the anterior teeth, and 2 bicuspids and molars on the other side. So we can count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 teeth in that impression. You can count them. Got it? And it clearly shows all of those lower teeth. They all have to be in there so we can make a soft guard. If teeth are missing or they're defective in the impression, something's bad with the impression, we cannot make the make the soft guard properly. So the assistant is supposed to bring that impression to the doctor for final approval. A lot of a lot of TMD assistants, they take it, oh, I'm so good, I'm so good, I'm so good. Then we go into the lab and pour it up and it's all screwed up because they're not intellectuals. They're not checking everything. They're not being the best in the world. We're world class. We're best. So each time an impression is taken, whether it's good or bad, we look at the impression, we say, how can we improve this? Can we do better? Got it? So it clearly shows all the lower teeth, and there are no large defects on the teeth, because if there's a defect on the teeth, we can't make a soft guard on it. In other words, that alginate makes a copy of the patient's teeth. It's a negative copy. And when you look at this particular impression, we are going to pour it up and we'll have a model that comes from that impression. The model has to be accurate. Therefore, the soft guard will also be accurate. All right, so here we have a maxillary or upper impression. Please, top left, it says maxillary, alginate, and master model. The master model is not here, we pour it up. But basically, if you see this, there is no horseshoe shape. The middle of the impression is all full. So you put your finger, press it up in the middle of your upper jaw, there's something called a palate, and it's hard. On the bottom, there's a tongue in there, and it's on like a trampoline, but there's no bone in the middle of that horseshoe on the bottom. Here, on the top, it's all bone. And so when you take the impression, you get this flat bowl. It's like a bowl turned upside down. It's hard. And we see that here in the middle of this maxillary or upper impression. All the teeth are beautifully shown. We look on the left side, we have 2 molars, 1, 2, 2 bicuspids, 3, 4. Then we got the vampire teeth of the 2 top right and left sides, anterior teeth, bicuspids and molars on the other side. Very important you understand. Bottom has a horseshoe shape, middle is open. Upper palatal has a palate that is not open. Upper is not a horseshoe. All the teeth have to be clearly seen, and there are no defects. The teeth are perfect, just like in the mouth, real copies. All right. So mandatory that we get a lower impression. That's beautiful to start. If we can, we're going to get we're going to get the lower first and the upper both that day. Very important. And you need to know this, because if we get the upper the same day, we can schedule the JRT jaw relations where we determine where we want to put that person's jaw and how we want to make their mandibular orthopedic repositioning appliance, the dental appliance that's going to heal them. It's abbreviated MORA, M-O-R-A. Mandibular, M. Orthopedic, ortho means straight. Pedic means like a pediatrician, child, straight child. Orthopedic, O. R for repositioning. It's not the same position as their real bite. It's different. Teeth are going to be different. Teeth are in the same place, but we're moving the jaw into a different place. Appliance, meaning something that's put in a person's mouth. Got it? These are all terms that you're going to learn. You're introducing things little by little. So as you're doing this and you study other courses, you will in fact know what's going on. Now, what I think is extremely important is, as you learn a lot of stuff, you go back and look at this again, because this actual video, one of the most important videos, you look at it again after learning all terms and doing things and seeing things, you'll get a lot more out of it the second time that you view it. So please study, take notes, but later, maybe in a month or two, come back and look at this video again. Very important, especially if you are a receptionist or office manager. Really important, really, really important, because this is your job. The TMD assistant can sometimes go up and help with the front office, but that's not the TMD assistant's primary charge. The TMD assistant is in charge of treatment, things related to treatment. So, take your time, try to understand this. Goal, minimum goal, get the lower impression. Really what you want to do if you can, upper and lower. So very important to do a TMD start. It's quite amazing, but I have a like $150,000 CAT scan
that I purchased. I always like to say, it's like my splurge. I'd rather drive a cheap car and put all that money into getting me a good play toy that I enjoy. And the CAT scan is 3D. So when you get these kids playing with these games that are 3D, everything moves around, this is 3D. I can slice up the patient, different like 20 slices, and look at each slice and see if there's anything abnormal about each slice or the shape of the joint. Is that okay? Is there cancer? Is there fat cells in there? Any damage? All this stuff I can see with my CAT scan, and we have one in our office. How cool is that? And this is a really nice one with software that the senior TMD assistant works with me on to set up the case, to analyze the joints, and then to make sure no cancer, right? And if there's a bad problem, deteriorated joints, we document and show that those joints are deteriorated. Why? Because later the patient says, look what you did to me. You deteriorated my joints. And then we pull the CAT scan up showing, no, you already had damaged joints. So legally, fantastic. Also, just knowing sometimes how to change the patient's treatment slightly because of a problem in their joint, we want to be able to see that problem so that we can maybe modify their treatment to accommodate the problems that this patient has. And we have one in our office. I'm just so excited. This is the second one I got. The first one was really small. It can only look at a small portion. This can look at most of the head, and it is called a CAVO OP3. It says OP30 here, with a special attachment, which is not shown here, to take like side plates of the whole head. I can actually see the whole head and neck in one picture, in one plate, like a screen, and it's fantastic. And we take these pictures to ensure that we know what's going on internally with the bone for each patient, and this is absolutely necessary. But let's say later the patient says, you destroyed my joint, and I say, and I don't have the x-ray. I can't prove I didn't. I did it. I can't prove anything. So by having this CAT scan, I can prove that her joint was already deteriorated. I didn't do it. Next thing is also, I want to see what the condition of each joint is, because that might modify the treatment I provide, right? Or if I see cancer, which I've seen in some cases, if I've seen cancer, whoa, maybe I need to get that to a cancer surgeon immediately, and that the TMD treatment is not as important as the cancer therapy. So this x-ray is absolutely necessary, and it's done immediately within the first week of treatment. Please don't ignore it. And we have so many that have been ignored simply because the assistants are lazy. Oh, I want to go have coffee. I don't want to go take this x-ray. Even though it takes like really both x-rays, the TMJ, temporomandibular joint, left and right, CAT scan, takes maybe 10 minutes. So it's not a big deal. But we do it for every single patient. Necessary, absolutely necessary, legally, must be done. Excuse me, that's why it is in this portion of the form. In addition to the CAT scan, we also take something called a cephalometric radiograph. Cephalo means head. Metric means to measure. Cephalometric would be measurements of the head, and it's an x-ray. So we call it radiograph, like radiation graph. When we look at this particular picture, you'll notice that we have the head on the top, and then we have the neck below. We call the neck the cervical spine. Cervical, C-E-R-V-I-C-A-L, cervical. So a lot of times we'll send people for cervical physical therapy. And there's a whole bunch of things in this particular radiograph that we look at when I treat patients. The first thing is, if you look at the white cervical vertebra and look on the bottom, you have C7, cervical vertebra 7. There's 7 cervical vertebra. C7 is the 7th, 6 above it, 5 above it, 4 above it, 3 above it. So you've got like 3 C3, C4, C5, C6, C7, it's actually 5 vertebra, which are just basically like squares. Then above, you've got these two very special vertebra, uh, Atlas, ATLAS, which holds up the world, and then axis, like a wheel turning below it. So Atlas is held up by axis. Axis is the second one, the second vertebra. And it's not labeled. Here it says anterior arch of C1 and posterior arch of C1. And that is Atlas. Then you have the one below, which looks totally different from anything else. It's got this thing sticking way up, which is called a dens, which so it stands for tooth. So it looks like a tooth standing up. And then it got this big, giant, like to the right, horizontal white thing sticking back. That is the spine of the Atlas. Spine of the axis. Axis is below, and Atlas is above. We look at the curve of that spine, and we also look at the black spaces. Like if you look between C5 and C6, these two white blocks, there is black. And that's wonderful. And there's lots of black, right? If the black was less, that means that the disc is collapsing downward and deteriorating. And also, we're looking at the shapes of each one of these C3 through 7 are correctly shaped. There's no unusual protrusions or anything. This is what we look at, because if I see major cervical spine problems, I'm concerned, and I let the patient know. It is very important. And there are certain instances where it's serious, but we're not going to get into that. Just remember, we do a CAT scan of both joints, the right and left joint. So, TMJR would be the temporomandibular joint right side, TMJL, temporomandibular joint left side, and then we take the cephalometric. Guess what? I have modified. I paid an extra 20,000 to have a special part added to my CAT scan. This is like 160,000 X-ray, and it allows me to get this particular picture called a cephalometric radiograph. When we take them, we're supposed to take them right when we do the exam, but we tend to get lazy, and the assistants get lazy, and then when we go back to look, it's like, oh my God, she's having neck problems, and come to find out there's deterioration between 5 and 6, very common, very, very common. We see shape changes, we see disc degeneration. Degeneration means to break up, and the way you see it is the black space gets less and less. But we take the TMD assistant is required to get that cephalometric radiograph and the CAT scan, TMJ and CAT scans right in the beginning of therapy. Like, we really like it before the examination, full complete exam is done. But if we can't do it then, we like to do it within a week. And then all of a sudden, the poor TMD assistant now is legally responsible for making sure that those x-rays are taken and added into the examination, because that's not a doctor thing. Doctors don't take radiographs in hospitals. Radiology assistants do that. And so the TMD assistant must make sure that these two radiographs are taken, the CAT scan and the cephalometric, and the receptionist is watching over, hovering over. Did you take this? I looked at the form. You didn't sign off for it. What's going on? Why didn't you do it? So you're working together as a team. So clearly, the receptionist is in charge of making sure it all happens, because she's holding and using the form, storing the form, and reviewing the form constantly. But the TMD assistant is supposed to be in charge of taking the actual radiographs. That's her job. And so often, we're very poor about following up. So how do we deal with that? We got a team, 2 people on the SEAL team dental, or actually SEAL team TMD, the TMD SEAL team. Both you, the receptionist, and the assistant, TMD assistant, work together to get this necessary and needed radiograph. So these are 9 different separate photographs of the same patient
it is done for orthodontics. Uh, we take all of these orthodontic pictures along with a side uh, picture of the head. I kind of got it here, but it's turned a little bit. We like it shoulders parallel or, straight with us. We also take a picture of the feet in their resting position and the whole posture, the whole body. But these photographs help us identify problems with the patient's posture and asymmetries, things that are not even on both sides. Uh, Also, we had one patient, I think I told you previously, that accused me of breaking her teeth. And we had a picture of the lower teeth, which is the far right one in the middle. You see the whole lower arch. And it clearly showed that she had destroyed several of her front teeth, like 4 of the teeth were like very thin. You could see through them. And she was saying that the break was my fault, but I had photographs that were so nice and it just completely destroyed her argument. But we take these photographs, and this should be part and is of the analysis of the patient, also determining where the patient was when we started, and a lot of things like how well the patient's face looks, very important. All right, so we do take diagnostic photographs, we store them, and we use them for diagnosis. So I think one of the things that makes our practice so great is that we do a really, really extensive, comprehensive means just everything. It's a comprehensive thing. Comprehensive temporomandibular disorder examination. I sit with the patient about an hour, and I think in the future, when the team gets bigger and better, we have another doctor, where our examinations are going to get even crazier, even more in detail, looking for things like Lyme disease or other things that might be pissing off the temporomandibular joint or making things worse for the patient. I believe in holistic uh, uh, medicine. I believe that if you have asthma, you're not going to breathe well, you're not going to sleep well, you're going to be low oxygen, and then you might have TMD problems. Guess what? Who thinks about stuff like that, right? Very few people. I take sometimes even referrals from other TMD specialists, no kidding, several times, and then they couldn't figure out what the problem was. Here I am, they come in, I figure it out. Why? Because I'm detailed, extensive, and when I get into interesting cases, I'll set aside more time, even than they pay for free, to get them to the point where I can figure out what's going on. And that happens at the comprehensive, at the EEX, extensive evaluation, extensive examination. Technically, the exam is called the Comprehensive Temporomandibular Disorder, TMD, examination. In our office, we abbreviate it EEX. It's a full hour. Typically, we will deliver the soft guard, DSG, at that appointment because delivering a soft guard is not extensive. We literally just put it in the mouth and say, does it, are you comfortable? And we give them the 6-week TMD program that I developed, which helps muscles. So the first appliance is not the treatment appliance. Please understand that. If you screw that idea up, you're screwed, because a lot of patients think, oh, I'm not getting better, and we haven't even got to the actual mandibular orthopedic repositioning appliance, the hard guard. That's the real appliance. We want to get them in immediately, 1 week, 2 weeks, to get in their Mora or their hard guard, and we do a DHG, deliver hard guard, as soon as we possibly can. And we need to be a team. We need to work together. The real treatment appliance is the Mora. We put the soft guard in first, but that's not going to cure the patient. We need the Mora in as soon as possible. Whole bunch of stuff here. But before we place the soft guard, we must do a comprehensive temporomandibular disorder exam. I'm going to repeat this so that you will get it. We cannot deliver an appliance unless we do a full comprehensive exam. Only exception is emergency smashed up patients in accidents, closed locks, open locks, things that are special situations. And you just go with the rule, got to do an exam. Absolutely. And always, 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 you go up to the doctor and say, uh, do we have to do an exam for this patient? Never just cancel it. Don't do that. Malpractice, malpractice, bad person, fired. Go away from me. You're irresponsible. You're a terrible receptionist. Don't do that. Always a comprehensive exam. Malpractice is when you start doing things to people without looking first. We had an attorney one time who said, gee, I have a tooth that hurts really bad. And he comes in and it was an emergency. And I took the panoramic radiograph. Lo and behold, broken jaw. Well, what if I had him open and I did fillings, right? I would be a total idiot. I followed procedure. I took the pen. It was required at the time, and I saved his butt. Got him into, to the oral surgeon to be fixated because I don't do that. I've helped with that before, but let me tell you, you got to do things the right way. And we have to do a comprehensive exam. So you should just like poo-poo in your pants if you're looking at this CNT routing form and you see the exam was never done. Oh my God, Dr. Podolsky, senior dental assistant, senior TMD assistant, we need to get together. This is not allowed what's happening here. And you stop and you get this thing in, you make sure that examination has been completed and you record it. Well, here we say hallelujah because you're done with that records section. And when you're done, all records have been obtained. They're accurate. They're excellent. Doctors reviewed them. Senior TMD assistant is now proud. We sign off on the last line of the records where it says all necessary procedures completed. That should be, it can even be both the senior TMD assistant and the receptionist, and of course, the date that all the records were taken. So you're done with the records part of the CNT routing form. At this point, assuming you have the whole form done, because you can't retire this form until everything is done, including sending out books. So at this point, assuming you have the whole form done, everything filled out, yes, you can tear it up and throw away the CNT routing form. This is a patient who had a CNT, came in, started their care, and at some point we completed records and everything necessary. The patient does not necessarily have to be in treatment or not in treatment. So we can finish records like in a week, sometimes in a day, if everything's done well. So we don't throw the form away until the records are done, all the information is handled, books are sent out, everything's done. Then we destroy it because this is a patient that started treatment, and we're using the CNT routing form to keep track of this patient, make sure everything goes right with the patient and also the referring doctor, right? So completing this form includes sending Atlanta TMD Institute books and materials to all doctors and healthcare professionals who have also seen this patient. This tends to be a very weak point with weak-minded staff. Educating, our purpose for the TMD Institute is to educate healthcare professionals. We are not doing it. How can you be rewarded spiritually if you're not doing what you promised to do? So we said early is that we are going to educate healthcare professionals. And we do this primarily with videos, but we also do it with books that we send to all the healthcare providers involved with this particular patient because they know nothing about TMD. So review the form, make sure that everything in that form is done. And again, completing the records is really the main purpose of keeping it, the CNT routing form, but getting books out aggressively, intelligently, and caringly, getting these books out is extremely important to the success of the practice and also the success of mankind. So we have various situations where we store CNT forms. One, or a patient calls up, registers everything, we get all the information, and then that patient does not pay, never came in.
but we have a form for that patient, primarily because we have a referrer to thank, right? We really do. It could be it's the first one ever made, and no, we didn't get the patient, but we need to thank that referrer, right? It's opening a door to mankind and to people learning about TMD. It's very important. We do store these forms. We also keep forms where a person has come in for the CNT and unfortunately chosen not to start, right? Then we keep forms for people who have started until we've got the form completed. Once we have the form completed totally, we destroy that one. We are not going to destroy the one who didn't start. We're not going to destroy the one for the patient who didn't pay for the CNT. We keep those because we're going to work those, continually wonderfully contacting these people in different ways, showing them we care about them with the hopes that they'll come in sometime. So again, CNT routing forms are immediately, I mean right there, stored in 3-ring binders, labeled for each month and the year also. Otherwise, January 2024 and January 2025 would be confused. If you only put the month, you don't know the dates, you don't know the years. We have this all the time. We have a mess with a lot of models because the assistants did not follow directions and just put the month and day and not the year of our patients on models. It's nuts. When a caller or a patient does not start, this person's CNT routing form is kept and stored for 3 years. I'm going to repeat that, 3 years. We don't throw them away, and we have to shred them after 3 years because we figure if we've been contacting them lovingly, you know, with newsletters and calling them for 3 years, they're not coming in. So we're just going to get rid of that heavy load. We don't need to work that anymore. So after 3 years, these forms are shredded. They must be shredded, and the binders reused with new month and year labels. When a TMD patient starts and all the records are taken and all the previous healthcare professionals have been mailed and the entire form is completed, the CNT routing form is shredded. Since the receptionist no longer has to follow up to schedule a CNT for this patient's already started. We don't need to call them for a CNT, right? These people are done. They came in, they were our patients. Shred it. The CNT routing forms for for a patient who never started are reviewed and re-reviewed constantly so that we keep in touch with these potential TMD start patients. And these are people that called in, filled out a form, didn't pay, or came in, had a CNT, and never returned. You're doing sales, but you're doing sales for something important for their life. A lot of people are screwed up. You know, they'd rather have the headache every day than pay for coming in, and then they die with a huge amount of money in their IRA. It's just nuts. You know, what's the worth of getting rid of a headache? What's the worth of being able to sleep well? You know, a lot of these people have weird things in their heads that stops them from being successful in life and also stops them from being happy and healthy. So we have the responsibility, primarily the receptionist, to call, follow up, keep in touch. So this particular slide looks at a bunch of stuff, and it can get very confusing. I think if your job is the receptionist or your job is the office manager, you should really know all these different scenarios. So what is a scenario? A scenario is the way something could occur, something could happen. And sometimes there's different things that could happen. 3 or 4 things could happen that are different. So we're going to be looking at patients calling in and what they may or may not do. And we call this CNT or TMD consultation calls. Actually calls in by the, you know, we have another thing too, which is emails. And I haven't even put that in. But these are all different scenarios. One, the CNT potential patient calls, but no CNT form was filled out. Why? Because the receptionist didn't pick up the phone, or that they hung up before we could get to the phone because we were very unprofessional about answering phones in 3 rings. The patient could have left a message and we never got back to them. There's lots of reasons, or the receptionist could have spoke with the patient and for some reason was unable to convince the patient and just come in. B, scenario B, different. This time, the CNT patient calls and the receptionist fills out a form, but a CNT routing form, but the patient chose not to give money to make payment to guarantee the appointment. We are going to keep that form, which is completely filled out. We're going to store it in a 3-ring binder in the date of the month that the call was taken. We didn't make an appointment, therefore we can't store the form based on an appointment. There was no appointment made, and we must instead store the form based on the day the call came in. C, third option, CNT calls and a CNT appointment is made and they pay. Hallelujah, they're coming in, usually Monday morning, right? This is stored in the 3-ring binder, get this, on the date of the scheduled CNT appointment, not on the date that it was taken. Because every day when we start our day, we open up the binder on a date, and all the people who are coming in on that date, all their routing forms are in that folder or in that date. We can get to a CNT routing form easily. D, the CNT calls with a CNT appointment made and pays, but they canceled somewhere before the appointment or after the appointment. These are stored in the 3-ring binder on the date of the scheduled CNT appointment. We still want to stay in contact. E, a CNT call with a CNT appointment made and paid for, but the CNT did not start. They came in for one reason or the other. After we presented the case, they decided not to start. We don't know exactly why. We try to figure that out. This form is stored in the 3-ring binder on the date of the scheduled CNT because there was a CNT appointment. When there is a CNT appointment, it's stored on that date. When there's not a CNT appointment, it's stored on the date that the form is filled out. Got it? F, the CNT calls with the CNT appointment made and paid for the CNT and got approved for a loan or did not start. So, but did not start. So this person our receptionist was doing a great job of convincing them they want to have the treatment done, and then they apply for the loan, they get approved, and then when it's time to sign, they're freaking out. Money, 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 I'm going to die if I don't have money, and they don't continue. They just leave being approved for the loan. They can start, but money was such a huge issue, it crashed in on them. They're fearful, and they didn't want to get better because they're more worried about their money than getting better and healthy. Now finally, G, the CNT calls with the CNT appointment made and paid with a TMD start. Hallelujah. We store this in the 3-ring binder on the date of the scheduled CNT appointment. Look through the form because there's lots of things in the form we have to do. Now, a lot of people think, well, just throw it away, the person started. No, there are a bunch of things we have to do. We must get records, right? We must send books out to educate healthcare professionals. This is what our purpose is. If you don't want to do that, you shouldn't be working here, because one of our main goals is to educate other healthcare professionals, right? And if you don't want to do that, you don't have the spirit, you don't have the joy, you don't have the spiritual feeling that you're helping people by also helping other professionals. I happen to believe that if I train 2 dentists, they're going to treat 30, 40, 50, 80 patients. That's all. And then there's 10 of them, 800 patients. More healthcare professionals I train and educate, even other physicians and physical therapists. I'm helping a huge amount of people, even people that didn't come to the Atlanta TMD Institute, but I am helping them because I'm educating professionals. And we have to be focused on our goals and what we want to do and why we started this institute. So there are several different scenarios that could occur with CNT calls when they come in, and we're going to review each one. I think the first one, which doesn't result in a CNT form, that's a miserable situation. We have no way to contact that patient, no way to convince that patient. It's a broken relationship. We have no relationship. We never established a relationship. We want to have a relationship. And once we document that and at least put them into our follow-ups, we can follow up and stay in contact and keep a relationship with these people who call. We want to do that. It's extremely important. So A is when a CNT call comes in, but no CNT form is filled out. Now, I'm going to say something. That patient called to make an appointment. Yes, almost always. They probably wanted some information, and how well the information is handled depends upon the excellence of the receptionist.
An incompetent receptionist is going to get incompetent bad results. A competent receptionist will get much better results. We see that with CNT financial consultations. Some people do really well. My son John, when he was here, he had a 75% close rate. Most people get 50. So you might say, well, excuse me, there is a difference in who's doing it based upon their background, how much they care, and how excellent they are at what they do. So let's not ignore that, because the receptionist very often will abandon her telephone. You will turn over to the front of the office at times and disappeared. Where is the receptionist? Oh, I don't know, I think she's in the bathroom. I think she might have gone next door. Oh, she's abandoned her post. She's left the post without making sure the baby is taken care of. If you work in a daycare center and you leave the baby you're in charge of alone, you're fired. You should be fired. And I believe strongly that the receptionist who's responsible for taking the calls and making sure that they're done well should always take responsibility. If she leaves, she tells another person to cover. But that doesn't happen all the time. And honestly, that's so basic, we don't really talk about it. So when we see it, we can't believe it. It's like, wait a minute, she's in charge of the phones, she's not there. Very upsetting, extremely upsetting. And it creates a controversy within me personally, because I'm concerned about my patients. And if we don't pick up the telephone, we're giving them the message, we don't care about you. Who cares about you? And recently, I've had such strain and stress related to just getting hold of doctors because of my back. I'm just mad. Some of them do stupid things and do not open the telephones and take care of me. And it's clear, I believe, that they don't care. They may care, but they don't show it, you see? Because you could say, I love you, and then the husband beats the lady, the wife. That doesn't mean he cares. He says he does, but he really doesn't. The second is the receptionist ignored the telephone. I have actually had this happen. And we had a receptionist who just sometimes would be doing some work and would just ignore the telephone. We even had, I'm almost ready to cry, and I'm not lying to you, she put it on silent mode, which meant that she wouldn't pick it up. She just said, I'm doing too much right now. I don't want to do this. And she put it on silent mode. We caught her. She filed for unemployment. We denied it. We kept on fighting her. She was not a good person. I don't know. What am I talking about? Why should I ever say this? So the receptionist literally ignored the telephone. That's grounds for being terminated. But yet, that's what we see sometimes. Another thing would be receptionist did not use the telephone call history log on her telephone and did not immediately call back the missed call from a caller. So in other words, let's say we got someone and you're talking to someone and the call comes in, you don't get enough time to get and pick up that call, or you went to the bathroom and the person you assigned to cover you didn't cover. There's a call history. So you go back, oh, I just went poop. I was out for 10 minutes. I go back, last 10 minutes there were 2 calls. You call back immediately so that you find out, hey, is this person in pain? Does this person need my emergency care? Should I show love to this person? If that was your grandmother in pain, I know you would call her back. So don't say you won't. So you've got to use the telephone call history log. Next thing is, receptionist failed to follow telephone policy and did not use triage. Triage, tri means 3. And so during the Korean War, and especially during Vietnam, when a patient came in injured, a soldier, they would have 3 things they would do. 1, immediate surgery, right there in the field, right? B, very badly injured, but we'll be okay. Just give them some pain medicine and get them to have their surgery later. Or 3, they're going to die. Give them a lot of narcotic, put them aside, help them, keep them comfortable while they die. 3 piles. Well, what happens is when a call comes in and some patient's arguing about a bill, and another call comes in and a CNT caller calls in, no question, the CNT caller is more important because you want to get paid, right? Don't give me poop stuff. You want to get paid. And then you're taking this very $5,000, $10,000, $6,000 person, not even picking her up while you're talking to the other person who's arguing and doesn't want to pay us. Bad news. bad thought, bad behavior on your part. So you must, when you're talking to someone, pick up the phone and say, you say to the first caller, could you please hold for a brief moment while I pick this other call up? You you immediately assess the second call and see what it's about. Cold caller, hang up, just hang right up, get right back to your other call. If you're talking to a bill person and a CNT calls, you take the CNT call. Matter. So you say, well, no, first come first serve, like Kroger. You're at the Kroger meat counter. No, you're not. You take care of the CNT first. You take it. The only thing that would be more important would be a doctor call, a real doctor call, not a fake one. A lot of people call and make believe they're doctors to get through to me, and so you should always ask their business. But triage means take the most important call first, regardless of how they come in. Got it? So absolutely, someone calls up, first-time patient, they're first. And then you say to the other caller, gee, I think I should look at your account, study it a little bit so I'll be more knowledgeable. Can I give you a call back in order to make sure that I take very good care of you? Got it? So this is very important. Next thing is the receptionist failed to care whether this caller came in or not, and just didn't spend any time attempting to convince the caller of the benefits of TMD treatment at the Atlanta TMD Institute. So you should take a stand. You should say, I'm proud. I think we're the best in the world. I think my staff members are fantastic. And you work together with them. And you show that to the caller. Because some callers call up and you don't care whether they do it or not. That's bad. Again, the Atlanta TMD Institute telephone policy is that all calls must be answered within 3 rings of the call. This is part of our goal of being a world-class treatment facility. Answering calls immediately and caring for our patients like our kings and queens show patients that we're the best.
We're going over so many of these things so that you become a truly amazing receptionist, completely dedicated to helping people, patients, completely dedicated to helping other professionals, completely supporting my eventual effort to do research and help and write books. You're totally awesome. And I want you to be able to see everything you can do to help others through your job, because that's what you're doing. You're getting paid to help others. And hopefully you'll have that deep, almost spiritual thing in you saying, we're going to help people. And also, another thing that's really important is if you really care, you're going to make sure that the people around you also keep their own personal ethics in and don't do weird, bad things. Because we can't survive if staff are on their telephone all the time, clocking in and leaving, going to the bathroom all the time. We can't survive because these people don't really care about patients, healthcare professionals, you, and because the practices are going to be much more successful if we have a team working together, a SEAL team, rather than one person more concerned about their own personal interests. So I'm just saying, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Hopefully you'll adopt ways of helping the practice. And here we go. This is another option or scenario. B, the CNT caller calls and the receptionist fills out the CNT routing form, but no payment was received. Patient backed out once they realized, hey, I have to put some money into this. I have to guarantee to come to my visit or I'll lose my money. I don't want to guarantee because I wasn't even thinking of coming. I just was going to fill it out and see everything and not show up and cause a financial loss for the Atlanta TMD Institute. But whatever reason, you filled out the form. You do want to put that in a binder based on the date the call was taken. So you're going to follow up. Maybe 1 out of 20, you'll follow up for a year and they may come in because you are caring and loving and you pursue this activity. You don't get worried about anything. You really sincerely care when you call these people and you just say, how you doing? I'm sorry I didn't get to get you in. Be great if you could. We still have appointment slots open. How's your TMD doing? That type of stuff. This caller was interested in scheduling a CNT and gave the receptionist her information so that a CNT routing form was created, and we can now follow up you got that form, all the patient's information, their cell phone, you got their email, we can send them email newsletters, you got their address so we can send out newsletters to them regularly. You can keep in good contact with them. Creating the CNT form is a good thing, since the Institute knows who referred the caller and can also follow up to thank that referrer and also let the referrer know that this patient didn't visit the Atlanta TMD Institute. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Don't you like being rewarded and thanked when you do good things? You let someone turn on the street, you like them to raise their hand and wave to you as a way of thanking. We are thanking the referrer, even though the referrer may not have been successful in sending that particular patient. The referrer meant well, wanted this patient to be helped, and chose you and me and the Atlanta TMD Institute take care of his patient, right? That's important. It could even be the first referral. So if you threw it away and said, oh, this is not real, and we never thank the referrer, we're not going to get behavior repeated. They say you get good behavior repeated when you treat patients good, treat referrers good. It's good to thank referrers who sent patients to us, even though a few of these patients never come. Behavior is rewarded. Referring to us is the behavior that is repeated when it's rewarded. That's also being courteous. We want to be courteous and thank you for referring this patient. So our next scenario is when a CNT calls in and makes a CNT appointment and pays. Hallelujah. That's like, we call it a qualified patient, meaning they're willing to pay a little money to come in and spend time with us. It means that they're going to be more willing than the person who hung up on you to take care of themselves and pay for their needed therapy. We're not a communist state. Bella, I don't remember her last name. She was a physician in the Soviet Union, and the person who was a physician made the same money as a street sweeper. Kid you not. There's no respect for learned people, and this actually happened. And people that believe we should give them free care, we don't want them. And you're immediately saying that's prejudice, Dr. Podolsky. Okay, so if you do not wish to get paid and you don't want me to pay you, I agree with you. Well, that's okay. If you're not getting paid, you choose that truly in your heart for yourself and other people truly, then okay, you're a special person. But nobody does that. They don't. They want their pay, and they get aggressive and mean when they don't get their pay, right? So this CNT call is made and paid. The CNT routing form is stored in the 3-ring binder on the date of the scheduled CNT. We're going to open that date up. We're going to pull all the CNT's forms, and we'll have them all ready for the CNT appointment. So it's always a good thing when a patient chooses to visit us. In most cases, these patients were referred and were encouraged by the referring doctors, and these patients feel comfortable coming into the Atlanta TMD Institute, and we're real happy. This is a wonderful thing. So here's a bummer situation. D means the CNT person called, they scheduled the appointment, and they made the appointment and paid for the appointment, but then they canceled. And remember, there's no refunds for these appointment cancellations, and we really discourage moving them. If we have plenty of notice, we'll move them for them for free. But if they cancel the same day or within 48 hours and we lose money, I'm not going to get money back after I lost money. This is a very important concept. So this one was qualified. They made the payment, but they canceled. And there's no great solution here. There isn't. You still store this in the 3-ring binder based on the date of the scheduled CNT, even though that person did not come in. So it's a bummer. So she paid and she didn't show up. She reserved an hour of time for herself, and she didn't show up. Now I'm going to tell you, you get paid X amount of dollars per hour, 18 bucks or whatever it might be, 15 bucks. You expect to get that, and you get mad if you don't get it because you believe you're entitled to get paid because you worked. You know, And what about me? What about the Atlanta TMD Institute when we have to pay like $3.11 per hour for staff salaries, telephone, insurance, water, trash, all kind of stuff, man. You're thinking, oh, we're sitting here and there's only 2 employees or 3 employees. No, we got a lot of expenses, a bunch, and it costs us about 311. So when that lady or man does not show up, I have to fork out money out of my wallet. I have to turn over, take the money out. I'm crying now. It's like going to Kroger and paying 311 bucks and not getting any food. Like you got nothing, we're losing. So the 311 per hour costs are partially, but not fully covered by the payment. The truth is, the Atlanta TMD Institute loses money when this happens, and no one wins. We lose big time. The patient loses big time. The staff don't get to do what they love to do and take care of this patient. Nothing is good about this. It isn't. And I don't know the solution. Right now, I just can't see losing 311 bucks without any help from a person who did this to me, right? That's how I look at it. Maybe someday we'll come up with some sort of plan for these type of patients. This next scenario means that we did not create value enough for the patient to get started. In other words, they didn't feel that the money spent was equal to the benefit that they get. Now, the benefit that they get is outrageously great. I mean, no more headaches, being able to sleep better, sense of well-being restored, losing weight very often, just so many wonderful things happen. We never convinced that patient strong enough to get them to say, yes, I'm going to do it. They backed up because they were worried about money most of the time. In this scenario, the CNT caller calls and makes a CNT appointment and pays, but did not start. They met us. We educated the heck out of them. Sometimes we educate them too much because then they go off and think they can do things without using our services. They really do. It's like, well, I think I can do brain surgery. Let me try it, and there are a lot of people like that. These patients actually visited the Atlanta TMD Institute, and they met with the staff and met with Dr. Podolsky. We have a real relationship with this patient because we met and bonded while reviewing the patient's TMD case. I'm going to tell you, any staff that know me, when I really want to take care of somebody and they leave, I am depressed for a day. I'm just irritable. I'm depressed. I know in most cases they're not going to get better. If not, they're going to get worse. And I feel like somehow I was part of that by not convincing them well enough to get taken care of. It ruins me. It really does. And this is a situation where they come to the appointment, we educate them, we love them, and they don't start. It's just tough. So we hope that this patient will later return and have their needed TMD care done at the Atlanta TMD Institute. And we're depending heavily on the receptionist following up, contacting, being loving and caring, talking to the patient, sending little reminders like newsletters, texts and emails, showing the patient we care and that we're here for them. Please, they should reconsider and come in. We would love that. So this is the next to the last situation or scenario. And for me, it's crazy, the receptionist or whoever was registering and selling, I hate that word sell, but the same token, it's very accurate. We're trying to sell them their health. What are we selling them? We're selling you your health. Well, I'd rather have a car when you'd rather have your health. We're selling your health, right? So the CNT caller came in, had the consult, got all excited, applied and got approved for their cherry loan, but they didn't start because they got what they call keyed in. All of a sudden, they're so worried they're going to die. Oh my God. And there's something called buyer's remorse. It's where many people within the first day walk away and don't, they regret heavily that they did something. But It just means that we never created enough value. We never convinced them that we're going to help them. We never made their problems evident. This headache, a lot of times how you talk to them about their headache makes them feel like the headache's worse. When you're talking with them, they're more likely to start with us, but we didn't do our job well because we weren't able to sell them their health, right? So in this particular case, the CNT called and they made an appointment and they paid for the CNT. They came in and they got approved for the loan, but they didn't start. They walked out in fear, terror. Unfortunately, we didn't create value. We do store this particular binder writing form in the binder. We put in big, approved, financing approved. That means that they were qualified, but for some reason they didn't start. And it's sad. This is the scenario that we like the best when the CNT calls. The CNT patient then makes an appointment and pays, and they come in for the CNT and they start that day. It's a TMD start. That's wonderful. That's everything we want. We're successful. We're doing what we want. We're helping others, and we're thriving because we need money to pay staff. We need money to do research. We need money to pay the telephone bill, the gas bill. We have money to pay taxes. It's a wonderful thing. However, we have some very important obligations, and one mainly is getting all the records, contacting all the previous physicians and dentists and physical therapists. And honestly, we do a miserable job in this particular area, and that's why I'm doing this video so extensively. You're like, Dr. P, you're pounding on this. And yeah, I'm pounding on it because we're just missing out. We're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, educating others. And also, that comes down also that the healthcare population understands what's going on. We will have more referrals. Other dentists will have more referrals. People will be taken care of. They will not be suffering anymore because it is a very common disorder. 70% of the population, female population, has TMD, and maybe about 15 to 20% really need to be treated. It's not minor. So getting out all of the books, literature, contacting all of these previous healthcare providers or co-healthcare providers is extremely important. And so what we do is we take this CNT routing form, we put it in a 3-ring binder based on the date of the CNT, and the receptionist puts in the date of the start in the back of the routing form, and then constantly looks through that she doesn't call this patient like she would someone who did not come in, because this person did come in. Instead of calling the patient, she calls the senior TMD assistant. Like, hey, we don't have all the records. All the records need to be done. All right, that's what you're filing this particular routing form for. So this is just to conclude this section, really the record section of the CNT routing form. It's really important. Remember, you work for the Atlanta TMD Institute, and I particularly chose this tree of life because everyone deserves a wonderful life to prosper, grow, and do well. And we're all about education, knowledge, and care. So education meaning we're going to educate our fellow medical and dental professionals. Knowledge means that we are going to be growing. One of my big hopes is that we will develop some more knowledge about TMD. Really, there's very little TMD going on. There's lots of papers. Like, you can go into the journals and it's people giving their opinions, but the research is really limited. And such things as movement disorders, people shaking, that does have to do with TMD. We've had at least 3 cases that I know of that were shaking badly and stopped when we started treating them. So we want to do research, but in order to do research, I have to be free. I have to have time to do that, and I have to have the money to do that. So here we go. CNT starts are, these TMD starts are very important because it puts money away to be able to do other things instead of worrying about paying staff and expenses. So again, you work for the Atlanta TMD Institute, and I'm Dr. Podolsky.
Uh, what's the purposes in the bottom? To educate dental and medical professionals in TMD. We recently sent out a mailing to most of the hygienists, dental hygienists in the Atlanta area. I think we did maybe 1,200, 1,500 mailings, and we gave a free course online. And we knew when we sent it out, we're probably not going to get any referrals because dental hygienists don't make referrals. They work for dentists, and the dentist would go ape if the hygienist is referring behind his back. But we did it because we wanted uh, these people who are suffering with TMD to be identified so they can be treated because there was no way, and the hygienist is a primary person. So we did that because of that, that first line to educate dental and medical professionals in TMD. We got no return for that. That sucker, I mean, that probably we were into that maybe $2,500 just to educate hygienists. No return to develop knowledge of temporomandibular disorders, and that's really where I am. I've written 8 books. I'm trying to finish them up quickly so that if I die, they'll be there. We'll publish them, and make sure the books are there, and continually try to learn about new things in TMD, and then finally to successfully treat patients who are suffering with TMD. We are I guess we call it a tertiary referral center. I take referrals from other dental professionals. Actually, we've had a few, at least 2 last year, excuse me, who were referred by other TMD experts to solve problems, and we did. In both cases, I solved the problem that the other professional was having problems with. And that's because it's all I do. I don't depend upon removing teeth. I don't have to do cleanings to anybody. I just do TMD. That's it. That's completely my mental focus, both in the office and out of the office right now. But I appreciate having you as my staff member. I appreciate your assisting me with helping my patients. I should say our patients, and hopefully we'll grow and we'll make more of a mark on the world. That's really when I say we do world-class care. It's also world-class care is dependent upon the front office also. And we have all these systems that seem like cumbersome and difficult to do, but in fact, when you do them well, you're helping people. And don't ever forget that you are helping people.